他发起的这个全部的。
In 1985, China overtook the United States of America as Hong Kong's #1 trading partner. For Hong Kong industrialists, who have long been under threat from American protectionism, opening the Chinese market of over 1,000 million people has been urgent business. Last December, the Trade Development Council held a series of promotion activities in Beijing, with particular emphasis on the Made in Hong Kong 86 products exhibition. The exhibition was aimed at providing participants with an opportunity to directly negotiate with Chinese buyers. Representatives of more than 10 organizations from various provinces and cities in China were invited to the venue to introduce China's investment environment and trade situation. During the period of promotions, Chairman of the Trade Development Council, Ms. Lydia Dunn, personally led an economic and trade mission to visit Chinese leaders in order to strengthen economic cooperation. The late Governor, Sir Edward, and Lady Yud were specially invited to take part in this visit to Beijing. Mission members attended a dinner reception hosted by the China Council for the Promotion of International Trade, or the CCPIT, at the Great Hall of the People. Mr. Jia Xi, president of the CCPIT, gave a welcoming speech. Members of the mission also visited the first Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Foreign Economic Relations and Trade, Mr. Wang Pingqing. From him, they obtained details of China's latest economic and trade policies.
There are new developments in China's and investment, and the members of the delegation will be very interested to hear anything that you say on that subject.
In reply, Mr. Wang said that China would continue her open economic policy. He also responded to a point raised by some members of the delegation that a lot of official organizations in China were plagued with problems of bureaucracy. He said the Chinese government would try to simplify application procedures to do with trade. While the delegation members were busily calling on Chinese officials, 3 industrial missions representing the electronics, garments, and watch and clock industries paid visits to factories in China. In this leading microcomputer and semiconductor plant in Beijing, members of the electronics mission got to know the factory operators and found out what production facilities they needed. The 3 industrial missions also made a trip to the Import and Export Corporation to get a better understanding of Chinese trading procedures. Beijing is the political, economic, and cultural center of China, but the Trade Development Council's promotions were not merely confined to Beijing. The objective was in fact the whole of China. The total value of trade between China and Hong Kong has increased 11-fold since China introduced her open door policy. In 1985, it exceeded $120,000 million. Not only was China Hong Kong's second largest export market, she was also Hong Kong's largest re-export market. Last year, China put into effect her 7th 5-year plan, which is aimed at encouraging exports to earn foreign exchange and strictly controlling imports, particularly of consumer products. A warm welcome is of course extended to production facilities that would help upgrade the quality of their products for export. The quality of the products of this electronics flashlight factory in Beijing, for example, failed for quite some time to reach export standards. The flashlights were therefore only suitable for internal sales. But since joining hands with Hong Kong investors in 1985, they have been able to produce spare parts by imported molding machines, and product quality has improved significantly. Now a good portion of their products made the grade for export. Because machines made in Hong Kong can meet China's specific needs, the volume of machinery sales to China has been on the increase in spite of the countries implementing import controls. On December the 3rd, the Made in Hong Kong 86 Products exhibition opened. The curtain raiser was a multivision show. Chinese guests attending the official opening included President of the CCPIT, the co-organizer of the promotion, Mr. Jia Xi, head of the Hong Kong branch of the New China News Agency, Mr. Xi Jiatuan, and Minister of the State Economic Commission, Mr. Lu Dong. In her opening speech, Chairman of the Hong Kong Trade Development Council, Ms. Lydia Dunn, repeatedly emphasized the wish among Hong Kong entrepreneurs to develop a closer trading partnership with China.
举办这次展览会的目的是希望在互惠互利的原则下，促进中国内地和香港的贸易，加强双方合作。
More than 90,000 invitations to the exhibition were sent out to units all over China. The Hong Kong Trade Development Council spent some $5 million to stage the exhibition. Participating manufacturers numbered more than 70. Some 2,500 products were displayed. 70% of the exhibits were non-consumer items, the majority being, in fact, machinery, which occupied half of the exhibition area. During the exhibition, the organizers arranged for Chinese officials to take part in seminars to answer queries that Hong Kong merchants had on China trade. At the Made in Hong Kong 86 Products exhibition, Hong Kong participants were very generous with free gifts. From the delight shown by the mainlanders, we may conclude that Hong Kong products are very popular, and there should be no lack of mainland buyers. But some Hong Kong merchants have been hesitant to enter the Chinese market. Some say that they don't have a clue how and where to start. Admittedly, inexperienced merchants have found the going pretty tough in China, especially in locating the right unit for making transactions, thus suffering considerable wastage of time, money and efforts. Consider Chinese management. It's based on collective leadership, collective decision-making. Take this electroplating factory in Beijing, for instance. Negotiating the purchase of a machine costing merely $20,000 involved 6 representatives, including the factory manager, the engineer, and representatives from the Import and Export Corporation. The Hong Kong party thought the Chinese were taking the matter too ceremoniously, but the factory manager said many hands made light work. In any case, the ultimate decision on the import of machinery rested with the Import and Export Corporation, not the factory management. Officials of the Ministry of Foreign Economic Relations and Trade admit that the lack of entrepreneurial autonomy is common in mainland China. Some Hong Kong traders unfamiliar with China's import procedures have wrongly identified people in China and have subsequently been forced to abandon their ventures.
曾经有些有这种情况发生过，有些在贸易方面的问题，不知道一种商品，到底是和哪个方面去进行贸易，找不着适当的伙伴，或者找到伙伴以后签了合同以后呢，由于外汇方面或者其他方面的因素呢，合同不能履约的情况也是有的。
A transaction in mainland China can be a time-consuming exercise. Documentation and approvals take time. Sometimes collective leadership causes further delays.
就係話呢個一個經理睇完又唔啱，又要第二個書記啊或者廠長啦，咁啊經過幾重改，我哋曾經試過一個稿咧改成10幾次嘅，即係都未買得到欄。喺呢方面嚟講咧，就嘥咗我哋好多時間，同埋做多咗好多咧不必要嘅工作。
Delays have caused some manufacturers substantial financial losses.
係如果耐嘅時候，可能1年前同你傾啦，咁當時報咗個價錢啦，係當時嘅通脹嘅計啦，但係以後咧佢可能1年後先同你成交，但係到時你嘅機價可能已經係加咗，但係佢會以翻你報嘅價錢去同你傾，咁樣有時做得出嚟咧就比較好辛苦啊個價錢方面。
咁譬如話個影響喺邊咧？係咪話如果個價錢已經係唔同咗，你哋都跟翻以前個價錢同佢交易咧？
看情形啦，有時都會，但係咧變咗我哋可能會冇錢賺啦。
What follows is an account of how one participating exhibitor negotiated with the Chinese. Mr. Lo deals in soft drink cans. His negotiations this time were with a Beijing-based soft drinks manufacturer. This was the first meeting between Mr. Loy and the factory operator, although they had already corresponded 4 times. According to Mr. Loy, most Chinese prefer to talk over details in person. This differs from overseas buyers who would feel quite comfortable talking business over the phone. There were plans in this Beijing-based soft drinks company to replace bottles with cans, and they intended to order 1 million cans. They assigned the chief of the planning division, a graphics designer, and a senior member of the staff to negotiate the deal.
那好了，我就按照给你配上去了。
人家给纸小了，你要再搞大了又不太好搞。这个呢，这个所有的文字都是按照这个就行。所有文字，这个文字你看再大了可能没有地方放，这个你给搞得漂亮一点更好了。
Experience reminded Mr. Loy that this factory only produced for the domestic market and would definitely not have any foreign exchange. If they weren't certain they'd get foreign exchange, negotiating would only be a waste of time. So Mr. Loy asked from the outset which import and export corporation the factory was linked with and whether they had confidence in getting foreign exchange.
北京市公司第一分公司，
第一轻工业分公司，
第一轻工业分公司啊。
由他们主谈，因为我在买卖由他来做。
那你的外汇都是他们渠道这种的啊，中国技术开发公司嘛。那么这个合同接下来可以签吗？签订吗？
具体价钱呢，我请那他们分公司来谈。
At this point, the deputy manager responsible for marketing joined in the negotiations. In the end, they were only able to reach an initial agreement on the label design of the cans. Although the deputy manager was present, he didn't have the power to decide on purchase. Mr. Loy had to further discuss the matter with the Import and Export Corporation. Before parting, Mr. Loy gave the mainlanders some calendars and ball pens as souvenirs. He says mainlanders put a lot of emphasis on relationships. Business is sometimes identified with a person rather than the company. So it invests a lot of thought and time in building up friendship, dinners and gifts being at times inevitable. 3 days later, Mr. Loy returned to the factory. Besides arranging for the attendance of the representative from the Import and Export Corporation, the factory management delegated yet another deputy manager, one responsible for purchasing, to the negotiations. And he had fresh ideas about label design of the cans.
像这个色吧，橘子色这个也不一样，就是橘子色的氧化了的，已经氧化了。
这个我就跟上期跟康远谈过了，就按照那个这个升旗式美国升旗式那个颜色。 那个颜色给你看。
哎，这样子跟他谈那个细细那个颜色呢，行不行？
这个知道，上期跟康先生谈过这个问题。所以这个颜色这个设计根本上，上期已经谈完了。接下来谈具体就谈这个合同。
Mr. Lei had to remind them that the label design had been decided in the last discussion, and suggested that they concentrate on the question of price.
真的救不过来了，对不起啊，真的对不起这个。 我提了6块钱，你还有跟我讲价，我应该再跟你提多一点了。
我跟你讲价，这个现在你国内你北京也有买嘛，都一样的，
很清楚了，很清楚了。
如果你在这个我的危机的时候，你给我一个支持，那我非常感谢你。以后我这个老是想着你，我以后买你的罐。你也知道我现在我的设备的安装，我现在急需要罐。我急需要罐的时候，你给我加起来这么着，我觉得
我没有这个意思，我没有这个意思，我真的没有。
An agreement was finally reached after a round of bargaining, but no contract could yet be signed, as they had to wait for the Import and Export Corporation to draft up details of the contract. Even officials of the Ministry of Foreign Economic Relations and Trade admit there is room for improvement in Chinese enterprises, especially where negotiating autonomy is concerned.
一个就是这个对外贸的经营，一个是政企要分开。外贸企业你是公司有权 决定他的问题，他的自主权，啊，不许就要在这个整个国家的政策、国家的这个一些个规定之下的话，他有权独立经营，这样他可以决定了。现在有的事情不行啊，你们每一事情都要打报告，上头其实就不行，是这样的。我想很重要的政企分开是重要的方面。
Seeing that many Hong Kong traders are not clear as to how to go about doing business in mainland China, during the exhibition period, the TDC invited Chinese officials to attend 2 seminars. The topics were the economy and external trade of the Beijing municipality and China's import procedures.
如果是这个项目经委批了，其他单位不同意怎么办？
那作为省市来说，省市也是成员这样，也是由省里面的纪委 负责审批所有项目，那么省里面的经委或省里面的经贸委一般是作为会签单位，就不是主办单位。但现在各个地方情况不完全一样，有的省市省里面定了说这个工作统统的由经贸委负责组织，那么这个批呢可能就是经贸委的，经贸委主办就变成主办单位了，那这个不完全一致的啊，这个各个地方有些差别。
Another obstacle to China-Hong Kong trade is China's strict control over foreign exchange. More than 6 months ago, this Beijing-based electroplating factory had plans to purchase a Hong Kong-made molding machine. But because the factory's products were destined for the domestic market, they did not have any foreign exchange allocation. They had to apply to the State Administration of Exchange Control, which meant a delay of half a year. The present Chinese government policy is to encourage export enterprises to earn foreign exchange. Companies with products made for the local market must apply to the State Administration of Exchange Control if they need foreign exchange. The decision depends on the overall foreign exchange balance of the whole country. It also depends on whether the foreign exchange is going to be used on an import that fits the country's overall needs. This is why a lot of time and energy can be wasted if Hong Kong manufacturers fail to find out from the outset if a potential Chinese buyer has access to foreign exchange. Officials from the State Administration of Exchange Control also attended the seminars organized by the TDC to explain the country's policy in allocating foreign exchange. The week-long exhibition came to a close on December the 9th. Marking the end of the trade promotion exercise in Beijing. Had anything been achieved? The exhibition attracted an attendance of 56,000 people. Chinese representatives from units all over the country inquired about more than 1,000 items. Trade valued at more than 70 million Hong Kong dollars was negotiated. Over 100 intention papers on joint ventures were signed. Members of the industrial missions felt their visits to factory in China and meetings with various trade units were beneficial to future developments.
今次係可以獲得香港即係電子工業訪問團嘅第一次去到北京啦。咁呢個係一個好重要嘅初步嘅可以接觸，同有關各個部門啊、當局啊，就做一個詳細嘅即係唔係詳細，或者係整面嘅即係電子工業方面嘅中國同香港配合嘅討論。就呢個係變咗係。 有關香港將來電子發展同埋中國電子發展呢，都會有用㗎。
The Hong Kong Economic and Trade Mission met with senior Chinese officials, including Wang Pingqing, First Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Foreign Economic Relations and Trade, Shen Qitong, Mayor of Beijing, Wang Bingqian, Minister of Finance, Ji Pangfei, Director of Hong Kong Macau Affairs of the Chinese State Council, and Chinese Premier Zhao Ziyang. Zhao said there was great potential in economic and trade cooperation between China and Hong Kong. They described the economic and trade relations between the two places as mutually complementary and beneficial.
今次我哋喺已故尤德爵士帶領之下呢，係有機會喺北京係見過特別係同嗰個工業啊、貿易啊、財經有關嘅好多嘅高級官員嘅。咁喺我哋嘅傾談嘅過程之中呢，係有機會使到貿易代表團嘅成員呢，同呢啲高層人士呢，係研究咗一切有關即係國內嘅貿易啊、投資環境方面嘅情形。
Chairman of the Hong Kong TDC, Lydia Dunn, also took the opportunity during the visit to officiate at the opening of the Beijing office of the Hong Kong TDC. Following successful promotion activities in Beijing, the establishment of the TDC's Beijing office should open new channels for Hong Kong manufacturers interested in exploring the Chinese market.
发发局